Hello, I hope you are well, I hope you're having a lovely day. Welcome to our lesson. Today we are looking at series and parallel circuits and generally spending a little bit of time just going through how circuits need to be put together at your request. So the first thing I would like you to do, please, is pause the video, read through and fill in the gaps. You don't need to write this down, it's not an issue, you can just do it, verbally. So pause the video and then I'll go through the answers. So, electric current is when electrons start to flow around a circuit. We use an ammeter to measure it, and it is measured in amps. Potential difference, also called voltage, is how big the push on the electrons is. It's better to say how much energy the electron's carrying, but fine. We use a voltmeter to measure it, and it is measured in volts. Resistance is anything that resists an electric current. It is measured in ohms. So, if you can please write the title and the date, series and parallel circuits. It's not the 26th of September, so whatever day it is when you see this. Okay, so first bit of notes is there are two types of circuit we can make called series and parallel. If there are no branches, then it's a series circuit. If there are branches, we call it a parallel circuit. Now on the left-hand side there, I'd also like you to draw these diagrams, is a series circuit. Now by branches, I mean where the circuit splits up. So here, current goes from positive, this is the positive side of the battery, to negative, and you will see it has no options. I know that the switch is open, ignore that for the time being. It has no options here. It cannot go at different ways, it just goes around. No branches, one route. However, in this parallel circuit on the right-hand side, the current could go this way or it can go that way. And so you can see there is a choice of routes. The circuit splits up, it branches off. And that's what I mean by branches. So now I thought I'd spend, once you've done that, a bit of time talking through general circuit rules, how to set them up, things you should be looking out for. Because as I say, I know that a couple of you mentioned it in the Zoom last time I saw you. So let's crack on with this. So just making this slightly smaller. Okay, so setting up a circuit. First thing you need is a power source. Now examples of power source is a cell or a battery if you've got more than one. Sometimes you will have things that look like this, that. Now all that means is that there's more cells in the middle there, but they couldn't be bothered to draw out 8 or 9 different cells. So they've just put ... So yeah, power source. This has a positive side and a negative side. So I've spoken about this before, but the long side is the positive side and the short side is the negative side. So positive and negative there. You should always have cells and power sources going positive, negative, positive, negative. The reason you want that and you don't want positive, positive, negative, negative, for example, is because you want to try and get these electrons to flow around a circuit. Now electrons, as you know, are negative, which means they are going to come out from the negative side and be attracted to the positive side. So they're going to be repelled by the negative and be attracted to the positive. Now this goes slightly further than you need it to know, but when scientists were first looking at current, they didn't know about electrons. This is before J.J. Thomson and his plum pudding model. They hadn't discovered electrons, but they knew that current was something. So when they started looking at circuits, they said current flowed from positive to negative. Now that is the opposite way. When they then discovered electrons, it's like, oh gosh, that electrons actually flow the opposite way to that. But we still say current flows from positive to negative. So that is quite an important thing. Less so at GCSE, but at A level, it pops up a lot. So you then have a circuit. Now, obviously, most circuits have a switch in them. Circuits will only let current flow if they are complete. So if your switch is open, current won't flow. I know you know that already. You can have a variety of components in your circuit. And components are things that basically do a job. So it might be a light bulb, taking the electrical energy and turning it into light energy. It might be a resistor which will slow those electrons down and use up energy in there. It might be an ammeter to measure the current, etc., etc. But depending on what type of component it is, it needs to go in different places. So I'm going to draw a really simple series circuit with a bulb in it. Now, if I want to measure the current through that bulb, I need to use an ammeter, but I need to put the ammeter in the circuit like that. So it just goes next to the thing that I want to measure it. We say that that ammeter is in series with the bulb because it's next to it. However, if I want to measure the voltage or potential difference, if you remember from previous lessons, I need a voltmeter, but I need it to go in parallel with the component. Now, if you remember, the reason it goes in parallel is so that it can measure the energy the electron's carrying at one point in the circuit and compare it to the energy it carried at a different point. So it needs to look at two different points in the circuit. So here we go, we've got a real basic circuit there with a bulb, an ammeter to measure its current, and a voltmeter to measure its potential difference. Now let's say I want another bulb in there. I want to have two bulbs, and I want them both to turn on at the same time, and I want them both to turn off at the same time. So, maybe you have spotlights in your ceiling, and you want them both to turn on at the same time. I would put the two bulbs in series, and I'd also put, it's meant to be a switch next to them. Now, when that switch is open, you will notice the whole circuit can't flow, so neither bulb will be on. When the switch is shut, both bulbs will turn on. Fantastic. But now let's say I have two rooms, I have two light switches. Let's say I'm actually sat in my dining room as I film this, and I have wall lights and I have a ceiling light. And I don't want them both to turn on at the same time. I want to have one switch for my wall lights and one switch for my ceiling lights. That's where I'd use a parallel circuit. So I'd put it there. So let's say these are my wall lights because I happen to have two wall lights. And this is my ceiling light. I can turn on, and let's call this switch A and switch B. If I shut switch A, current is able to flow around there. Fantastic. So you can get current through your wall lights, my wall lights will switch on. If I close switch B, but have switch A open, current is able to flow around the outside. So again, the ceiling light can turn on without the wall lights. So what I'm trying to say is if you have two components that you want to be able to control separately, you want them in a parallel circuit. If you want them both to turn on at the same time, you need them to be in series with each other, really. And that's it. So I'm hoping that kind of answers some of your questions about how to set up circuits, etc. Let me know if there's any other questions when I see you on Zoom at some point this week. So now let's carry on with the notes. So bulbs and brightness. Series circuit. Adding a bulb will decrease the brightness of the bulbs because the electrons use half their potential difference or energy in each bulb. If a bulb blows, all bulbs will turn off. Now what I mean by that is you are given a certain amount of voltage, let's say 10 volts from the cell. There are two bulbs in this series circuit. One of them might take 6 volts of that potential difference and the other might take 4. So they're having to split it. So the brightness of that bulb goes down. If one of these bulbs breaks, it breaks the circuit, so neither bulb will turn on. So if bulb blows is what we mean by breaks. However, in a parallel circuit, adding a bulb will keep the brightness of the bulb the same. This is because the electrons only pass through one bulb and use all of their potential difference energy in that single bulb. If a bulb blows, all the other bulbs will remain on. So again, I'll come back here. The electrons can go round this way or they can go round that way, but either way they will only go through one of the bulbs. So it doesn't matter how many bulbs you keep adding on, you will only ever have electrons going through one of them. And they will give all of their energy to that one bulb that they go through. So those bulbs will stay continuously bright. And likewise, If a bulb blows, you still have alternative routes. The other bulbs will stay on because current can still flow through them. So pause, make notes on that, and then we're getting on to these official rules that I need you to memorize. So, series circuit. These are the 3 rules. I want you to write them down, try and memorize them, and I will explain them in a moment. There is the same current through each component in a series circuit. The total potential difference or voltage of the supply is shared between the components. And the total resistance is the resistance of each component added together. So write that down, and then we'll move on. So a bit of explanation now you've written that down. Here is a series circuit. I have a power supply, and electrons are going to, current rather than electrons. I was going to go from positive to negative, so it's going to come out here. The current here is 2 amps. It will carry on flowing, go through the bulb. The current here will be 2 amps. The current here will be 2 amps. The current there will be, you're seeing the point here. It's 2 amps all the way around. It's the same all the way around. However, potential difference is shared between the components. So that's what I was talking about with that 10 volts and 6 and 4 earlier. So here we have 6 volts across the battery here. You have 3 bulbs. That means if they are all identical, bulbs aren't always identical, but hopefully they are, each one will take 2 volts. So it will share that 6 volts out. So now I'd like you to pause the video, and there are some practice questions, which I'll then go through the answers for. So hopefully everyone's had a little go at those. First thing to notice is you have a circuit here. V1 is the potential difference across your battery. V2 and V3 are your potential differences across your bulbs. So so that must mean V1 goes into the circuit and then splits to make up V2 and V3. So I've just written that in equation form because it'll help me later on. Question 1. V2 reads 1.2 volts, V3 reads 1.2 volts. V1 must read 2.4 volts, so they've got to be added together. Next one, V2 reads 2.25 volts, V3 reads 2.2 volts. V1 reads 4.45, so again I'm just adding them together. Number 3, curveball. V1 reads 3.2. V3 reads 1.5. V2 reads 3.2, take 1.5, 1.7 volts. 4, V1 reads 1.65, V2 reads 1.3, V3 reads 1.65 minus 1.3 equals 0.35 volts. Number 5, if both bulbs are the same, voltmeter V2 reads 1.75 volts, what does voltmeter V1 and voltmeter V3 read? V1 would be 3.5, you've got 2, and V3 would be 1.75 volts. Hopefully that's fairly straightforward. And our final rule and explanation is to find the total resistance of resistors in series, you add them together. So here we've got 2 resistors, 6 ohms and 4 ohms. The total resistance will be 10 ohms because all you do is add them together. Okay, let's go on to parallel circuits and another 3 rules. The potential difference or voltage across each branch is the same. The current from the battery is shared between the branches, and the more resistance added in parallel, the lower the total resistance of the circuit. So again, please pause the video, write these down, and I will explain them a little bit more. So let's go. First one, current. In a parallel circuit, the current has a choice of routes. So, dear, this is a long way around, isn't it? Right, I'm sorry about these arrows. How do I delete them? Apologies, let's get rid of these. They are clearly wrong. Right, so current comes from positive to negative. It comes out of here, lovely. Some of it will go down the first branch and some of it will go down the second branch. At the other side, they will join up together. So what I mean by that is if you have 6 amps of current coming from the battery, you might have 3 amps going to the first bulb and 3 amps going to the second bulb, and then it will join up again to make 6 amps on the other side. However, potential difference If you have 4 volts of potential difference from the battery, you will have 4 volts in the first branch and 4 volts in the second. It does not split, it is the same across every branch. Ooh, my Apple Pencil is going to die, so this is a perfect time for me to stop the video. You have various worksheets to have a go at on Google Classroom. They range in difficulty, and we will do another lesson just practicing this next time. So please don't panic if you're a bit like, woo! You'll get better with practice, I promise. Right, have a lovely day, everyone. Please let me know if you have any issues.